Our reaction to the 2026 F1 regulations. The 2026 Formula One regulations, obviously there's been a lot of chatter about it, but it's kind of like a confirmation of where we're at the moment with the cars, because there's been a lot of murmurs, a lot of things about simulators not corresponding to what it should be for these kind of cars, and they've not really said whether or not they actually are working too well in the simulator. But this is what we've got, Tommy, in front of us. We've got information, we've got pictures, and most of all, we've got vibes.
We have. And another thing was there was talk of, you mentioned about drivers being outspoken. I think one of them was in particular Max Verstappen, saying that he did it on the simulator and he thought it was terrible and all this kind of stuff. There was talk that the regulations might be delayed for another year and things like that, and we were going, oh no, because obviously we're in this year of Red Bull dominance, era of Red Bull dominance, but they've written 2026 all over the car and really hyped it up. So I assume we won't have a delay, like it certainly seems that way.
Yes, very exciting. Or not, depending if we get a 9-driver championship fight next year, because that's usually what happens at the end of Formula One regulations.
I'm getting so much deja vu from 2022 when they announced it, and it was like, this is it, the new regs. Surely, like, everyone's gonna, we're gonna see Haas winning races, and this is gonna be the best thing ever. And here we are. You can't win every race. So we'll see.
Certainly can't. Right, let's look into the first thoughts then on the look of the car. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details of the changes, let's talk about what it looks like. Looks a little bit more Formula 2 than previously. Going down the route of all kinds of things that we'll get into, active aero, and a lot of things that I'm reasonably excited about. But from a looks perspective, it's not too drastically different that it's, you kind of gasp when you see the picture. But it is a strip back again. They're going to have less downforce, so they don't look as mean. But honestly, they could look like a shoebox for all I care. If we got great racing, I could not care less what they look like. But I'm not too disgusted or anything by the look of them. I'm sure we'll get used to them very quickly, and they aren't that drastically different in my opinion.
No, they aren't. They look fine. Like, I'm not seeing it and going, oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm equally not going, oh my god, that's absolutely hideous. It's just kind of, they look fine. The front wing is very different, and the rear wing actually. The kind of front and rear wing remind me of that kind of mid 2000s era. It feels like it's going back to that. But the rest of the car does look very similar to how it's been. But exactly as you said, and I made this example as well of 2012, start of that season. These are the ugliest Formula One cars we've ever seen. The step noses are horrible. And you say 2012 to any F1 fan, and all they think of is the 7 different winners in the first 7 races and an absolute banger of a season where the championship went down to an amazing finale in Brazil. I could not care less how they look. Give me good racing, please.
Absolutely. So those are our first thoughts. Let's get into the first question from Meek Simmons. Are they actually smaller and more nimble than the current cars? Well, let me throw you with some facts, or at least what the FIA deem facts, before the F1 teams have a good old play with them. So they're 30 kilograms lighter than the current F1 machinery. The wheelbase is being reduced from 3,600 millimeters to 3,400 millimeters. The width of the cars are dropping by 100 millimeters from 2,000 to 1,900, and the maximum floor width will be reduced by 150 millimeters, which, I don't know if they're going for big numbers and just, because obviously millimeters, anytime you hear millimeters, you go, that is absolutely tiny. But they're like, hey, but it's a big number, so it might sound like they're getting a lot smaller. They're not. They are not getting, they're not 25% smaller or something that I'm sure myself and a lot of F1 fans have dreamed of. But lighter, more nimble. They have tried to make them a little bit smaller whilst also trying to pack everything in that they're trying to do to make them the most relevant from sustainability and engines and all that sort of stuff that we'll get onto. But they are, by fact, smaller.
Yeah, they are a bit smaller. Like you say, they didn't go with if they'd have led with the narrative of the Formula One cars will be 10 centimeters thinner, you'd be like, oh.
But 100 millimeters, that sounds
that
massive.
seems like a lot, doesn't it? But it's not really. Thank goodness they are lighter, because with all safety features that are getting added, of course, and the hybrid systems and all that, the car's getting heavier and heavier. That is the biggest problem with Formula One now. In my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions as well, that they are too big, and it's not just Monaco, it's other circuits. We're going to race at Montreal, which we were just talking about in our predictions, that we've not seen a great race there in so long, and cars are sort of getting too big for a lot of these classic circuits. So it's good that they've reduced it a bit. But then you can argue that we did have big wide cars back in the 90s and stuff. They could overtake a lot easier. It's more down to the aerodynamics and things like that. Although it is funny that they've reduced the front tyres and rear tyres, make them a little bit smaller as well. But they said that they hope that it doesn't significantly reduce the grip. And what I'll say to that is, reduce the grip, please.
Yeah,
I don't want
matter.
them to be Scalextric cars. I want them to be fighting. It doesn't need to be as extreme as like IndyCar, which I absolutely love. Just to cover that off. But like, even if it doesn't go that extreme that they're wrestling the cars, I need to see a bit of that, because as soon as we get those slippery conditions or whatever, you see the drivers fighting, you get more unpredictable results, you see more overtaking, more passing. Even though it sounds an insane thing to say, because a lot of casual Formula One fans or people that don't watch Formula One, it's like, sure, the whole point of Formula One is it's really, really quick. But actually, I'd take them being slower and less impressive cars, because I want to see driver skill. And I think that's something the sport's kind of lost a bit in recent years.
But yes, I'm happy for a loss of grip. I'm happy for... They were kind of suggesting in a little bit of a way with the video that they put out that it might be a bit more... They're going to be difficult to drive in some ways, or whether that will actually be the case, who knows. But that's what we want to see. That's when it's the most exciting. I don't get it. It's just give us
You don't want
something...
them on rails, do you? Because
it's
look
great
at this
pole lap
of
Lewis Hamilton a few years ago, and he's just turning his steering wheel like this, and it goes where he wants it to go all the time, and then it's a lap.
And then ultimately, less mistakes equal less retirements, unpredictable results, less action. Because if everything is the peak of performance and every Formula One driver can push, and it is like a Scalextric's car, everyone is going to be braking at the exact limit, they're going to be accelerating at the exact amount and all this kind of stuff. You're not going to get passing and overtaking if there's no variation in the braking zone and people are braking at different times and there's a challenge there. So yeah, fingers crossed that we do see a bit more of that and drivers having to fight.
Next question, aim_Ali. How does the DRS work now? Well, this is very interesting, and this is very exciting, in my opinion. So the FIA say that the 2026 cars will be switchable between two configurations to either minimise fuel consumption or to maximise cornering performance. So the all-new active aerodynamic system involves a movable, not just rear wing, but front wing as well. That's right. DRS on the front, kind of. This will also allow for greater cornering speeds with one wing angle deployed. Lower drag and greater straight line speed will be possible when the second angle is deployed. So this new system can be used in zones like those used for the current DRS overtaking aid. So how I'm seeing that is that we're not just going to have conventional straight DRS detection zones. We're going to have maybe places where aero is really important, perhaps, and then there might be an active aero section or something. That's how I kind of at least decipher this, is that it's not just as standard as overtakes will only happen in a straight line nowadays, because both cars will have that active aero on the front and the rear, but it's then, well, not the active, like to reduce we're just digesting this. My understanding was that was fine, but then it's more, and then it's throwing in the power, the added power that the car behind will have in that detection zone.
Yes, you make the cars more challenging, less downforce in that moment. And like you say, the DRS, my biggest complaint about DRS we've said it many times that it's absolutely necessary in modern Formula One because it is good to see the cars stay closer. But the bad side of DRS has always been those slam dunk overtakes where people just fly past another car on the straight and it doesn't feel like a real overtake. You want to see people outbraking people into corners and things like that. And it does feel like, fingers crossed, from what they're kind of teasing, that this could be more of a thing that you're actually getting people overtaking in corners in different parts of the circuits, because that's what you want to see.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're trying to take the pressure off the power unit, and that's why they're introducing this front and rear wing deployment for when they're on the straights. But then there is this additional choice of the two configurations, and also an additional boost of power for the driver behind when they're in particular DRS, we're going to call them zones. That's my understanding. A lot of talking and a lot of chatter. We're just two F1 fans based on vibes, so hopefully that's accurate. But I'm sure as things get tied up in the coming year or so, there'll be more clarification on how they're going to use that, whether it's going to be a certain amount of times rather than just being able to unlimited deploy and all kinds of stuff. So exciting though. I like the fact that they're trying something new. We've not just got the DRS zones, which, to be honest with you, in these generation of cars really aren't working. We're seeing DRS trains like never before. So yeah,
it's getting
absolutely
worse, isn't it?
Excited. And I'm surprised, Tommy, that you haven't sort of been jumping off your chair, to be honest, by the fact that they were sort of teasing an IndyCar sort of push-to-pass system, and you're just sat there like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. You've been praying for this, bruv. You've been manifesting
I was
ritual candles. I want more energy from you, Thomas.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, just if that is the case and that is how it's going to work, just sign me up, because I've always wanted that. Because the other thing about DRS is kind of defenseless motorway passes, and it doesn't feel like there's a driver skill involved. Whereas if it is more like this push to pass mechanism, the thing I love about IndyCar is that you can use it to defend and attack. This one, it seems like the power boost will be from the car behind, but it won't. It means that they'll have more power and hopefully make the move into the corners and things, which on paper sounds absolutely great. And of course they're not going to say it might not work. But from everything they're saying, it obviously sounds a lot better. The pessimist in me, and it's mainly because we've seen it so many times, is however much people working in Formula One are incredibly clever, they're also incredibly annoying because they love to ruin it for everyone by making their cars really, really quick and ruining all these regulations that are meant to help overtake. And they do not care when they're designing their cars what the fans think. They just want to make the quickest car and the car that's impossible to overtake and will win the race easily in the most boring way possible. So there's always that fight amongst regulations and the clever boffins that will go, well, actually, there's this loophole that can ruin the entire regulations, and we're absolutely going to go for it.
Next question from Pierre Prus. Will it be an engine formula again? So I've got some notes for you here. So while power from the hybrid unit has dropped from 550-ish kilowatts, to 400 kilowatts, the battery element has risen significantly from 120 kilowatts to 350. So it's basically a 300% increase in electrical power. And so the amount of energy that can be recuperated during the braking phase is also doubled to 8.5 MJ, millijoule.
Millijoules, yeah. Megajoule. Sorry, it's
megajoule.
Yeah.
So I baited you. I knew that the whole time. No, I didn't. That's why I got a B in science in my GCSEs. And the new regulations have led to commitments from existing suppliers, from Ferrari, Mercedes and Renault, while enticing Honda to return and encouraging the arrival of Audi and Ford, the latter entering through a partnership with Red Bull Powertrains. So in a nutshell, yes, it is an engine formula. And that's why the big teams, the Ferraris and the Mercedes and all this kind of, that's the ones that we're expecting to be very quick in 2026. Although Hamilton said, no, Mercedes, you are not going to be quick in 2026. I'm going to try my hand somewhere else. But yes, that's the feeling, is that it's going to be more about that. And especially when we've got less downforce, less things maybe for the teams to manipulate that side of things, it's going to be how quick they are.
It will, which is an interesting topic that we had about when Adrian Newey was leaving. Obviously, there will be that aerodynamic side, but Mercedes, for example, we saw they had a huge head start in 2014 because they had this amazing power unit, and we saw that it very much was down to the power unit, because you saw that all the other teams that did well at the start of 2014 were all Mercedes-powered cars, and it really was a really extreme version of an engine formula. The pain of a new regulation change will always be that one team might get it right, and it is. We've seen this example in 2022, which was a be careful what you wish for, because we all wanted the Mercedes domination era to end, and then it flipped on its head completely, and then we got another extreme thing. Please, all teams, just get these engine regs right.
So in a nutshell, I am pleasantly excited, I'd say, for the 2026 regulations. I'm sure we'll all be wishing that we could keep the current regulations when we do get an amazing season next year. But
it's going to happen again, because it happens every year. They're about to do a big change, because everyone commits so hard into the next regulations. You have that 1 year where everyone's sort of, it's not, no one's like putting all the effort into it. And that's exactly what happened with 2021, and we were all going, no, keep it now. So it'd be fascinating to see if that changes when we have, 2025, and it is Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso all battling for the title together.
You thought you could throw in Fernando Alonso like we wouldn't notice.
Sorry, I had to.
That is wild.
And Logan Sargent.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this emergency podcast. Let us know your thoughts on what you think on these 2026 cars, and we'll see you very soon for the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. Lots of love. Bye.
Racing, yay.